Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto trains by his mother and gets a massive harem part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. After getting the report on the failed Sasuke retrieval mission, the council was in an uproar. The civilians and elders were blaming the failure on Naruto Uzumaki while the clan heads and shinobi council were defending him. That demon brat is the reason why we lost Uchiha-sama. I say we execute him as a warning to all of our ninja who fail important missions. A merchant civilian said while the rest agree. The clan heads, soon mostly were releasing murderous intent on these power-hungry fools. How dare you? That boy has done nothing but stay loyal to this village and just because he failed to bring back that Uchiha you want to execute him. She yells because she respects Naruto for his loyalty to the village that has scorned him since he was born while Shibi nods. I see no logic in executing the boy for a failed mission. I agree with Sum-san on this. Yasha Haruno snorted. Like we care what you freaks think. That boy is the reason why we lost the most powerful bloodline in our village. Shibi's hand twitched while Sum snarled at the pink-haired slut. I'd rather be freak than a money-hungry slut, and if you insult me one more time Haruno I'll rip out your vocal cords. She said while flexing her claws to prove her point. Shikaku decided to speak up. Just because you can't tell the difference between the fox and the boy doesn't give you the right to execute him. For all we know it could result in the fox breaking free and continuing what it started 13 years ago. The Nara stated. What would the Yondaime think if he saw how you fools were dishonoring his last wish? Inoichi asked. Who cares what he thinks? He's dead and it's because of that brat. Another civilian council member says. The arguing continued for 15 minutes until Tsunade slammed her fist on the table. Enough. Naruto will not be executed because he falls under my jurisdiction due to the fact that he's a ninja. You civilians have no say in the matter. The last Senju said. No, but if the majority of us order his banishment then you can't do anything about it, Hokage-sama. Danzo said with a smirk on his face, as do the elders. Tsunade and the clan heads look at them in shock. What? She yelled. We should do a vote. Hands raised for Naruto Uzumaki's banishment. Danzo asked. He, Kaharu, Homaru, and the civilian council raised their hands. Hands raised against the banishment. Tsunade and the clan council raised their hands but frowned as they were outvoted. The others smirked as they finally got rid of the demon brat. Naruto Uzumaki is banished from Konohagakure and Hai no Kuni, and if he's not out of the village or country in less than 3 days he'll be declared as a missing nin and killed on sight. The war hawk stated. Tsunade clenched her fists and growled but then smiled at them, making them shiver. Fine. Naruto Uzumaki will be banished from Fire Country. Now as for the Uchiha, he will be put into the bingo book and will be declared as a B-ranked missing nin with a kill on sight order. And for compensation for his actions, his clan's treasures, scrolls, money, and property will be taken and split up upon the clan heads, and his status as a clan member will be null and voided by order of the Godime Hokage. She said while inwardly smiling because she hated the Uchihas. The clan heads smirked at her actions while the civilians went into an uproar demanding that she change her decision until she yelled. Shut the hell up right now or I'll have you all removed from the council. She roared as they all shutted up. You fools praise that traitor as if he was Kami, yet you treat the hero of this village like he was the devil reincarnated. My decision is final and this meeting is over. I have to go tell our hero that he's been banished by the very people and village he swore to protect. She said before walking out, but then turns around to look at them. You better pray that this doesn't come to bite us back in the ass, because if it does, you have yourselves to blame. Tsunade then walks out of the council room while tears run down her face and cursing herself for not doing more for the boy she thought of her grandson. Naruto's hospital room. The boy stared at the ceiling with a blank expression on his face. Sakura came in earlier yelling at him for not bringing back her Sasuke-kun and said that she never wanted to see him again and walked out. His so-called sensei didn't even bother to come check up on him and probably blames him for not bringing Sasuke back. Didn't I tell you, Kit? No matter what you do, these ninjin will never accept you. You should leave this hellhole and be done with them. To hell with your dream, they would never accept you as their cage. You know I'm right, Kyuubi said as she heard the boy grunt. He hated to admit it, but she was right. They would never let him be Hokage no matter what he did. Could this day get any worse? He said to himself until he saw Tsunade walk in his room with a saddened expression on his face. What's wrong, Oba-chan? He asked. I'm sorry, Naruto, but you are banished from the village by order of the council. You have 3 days to leave the country or you will be declared a missing nin and killed on sight, she choked out. Naruto's eyes widened, but he then hangs his head down and tears fell from his face. So they finally found a way to get rid of me, huh? I should have known this would happen sooner or later. Oh well, at least I'm finally out of this shithole. He gets out of the bed and gives her a hug. She hugs him back while her tears fell on his blonde hair. Goodbye, Okawa-san, and give Nei-chan and Tonton a hug for me, he says and lets go of her as she sobs while clutching her arms. Naruto then heads back to his apartment and packs everything he has but burns all of those jumpsuits he had and puts on a black one on. He then sneaks out at night but not before blowing up his apartment complex as a distraction. He then heads out of the gate without looking back at the village because it was no longer his concern. He was free to live his life and didn't have to worry about people glaring at him or trying to kill him on his birthday. He smiled a true smile and muttered 2 words. I'm free, Ha said as he vanished into the dark forest. At the Hokage Tower, Tsunade was sitting in her office drinking her sake while Shizune sighed. That's when Jiraiya appeared in a puff of smoke, grinning. Hey Haim, how's it going? He asked in a cheery voice. Jiraiya, please, I'm not the mood to deal with you right now, she said while looking out the window. The Toad Sage looks at her with a confused look on his face. What's wrong? Did the Gaki switch your sake with toilet water again? He asked and snickered at the memory. Tsunade looks up at him and glares. No, you baka, it's worse. The retrieval mission failed and those bakas on the council blamed him for it failing and they banished him. She cried and slammed the sake bottle on the desk. Jiraiya gave her a look of shock. I must have had something in my ear, Haim. Care to repeat that? He asked again. They banished him, damn it. He's gone, Jiraiya gone, she yelled while tears fell from her face. They what? Those bakas. Those short-minded, ignorant, self-centered bakas. Do they have any idea who they just banished? He yelled, releasing murderous intent like no tomorrow. Jiraiya, Tsunade started to say, but then he glared at her. Tsunade, please. I don't want to hear it. Not now. Minato, you stupid fool, you should have let me or Sensei seal the fox into your son. He growled and then left the office, but not before slamming the door hard, scaring Shizune and Tonton, who was hiding behind the med-nin. Well, that went well, she mumbled. That was when Kaharu and Homura walked in like they were in charge, but Tsunade looked up at them with hate in her eyes. If you've come here to tell me to take that traitor out of the bingo book, then you better get out before I decide to use you two as my personal punching bags, she said in a dark tone and then cracked her knuckles. They both gulp and then leave in fear, not wanting to face her wrath. Damn vultures, she mutters and grabs her sake bottle and drinks out of it. Naruto was now at a shinobi store in a village in River Country buying some more shinobi gear, including weights and scrolls. He was happy because he finally had decent weapons. After paying for the items, he heads out of the village and heads to Marsh Country, but little did he know that Danzo's Root Anbu were tailing him. Kit, we're being followed, the vixen warned while Naruto nodded. I sense 10 of them, he says as he pulls out a few smoke bombs out. He then throws them to the ground and they explode into a black smoke screen. Naruto takes this opportunity and runs into the forest at top speed. There's no way I'm fighting those guys, he muttered as he continues to run. Back in Konoha, Jiraiya was pissed. No, he was beyond pissed. He was no mad that if looks could kill, no one would be alive right now. He was so tempted to summon Gamabunta and let him raze this village to the ground but couldn't. He went from pissed, to angry, to sad. He failed. He failed Minato and Kushina, and failed his godson. To make it worse, he believed Sarutobi when he said he would make sure Naruto was taken care of. I can't believe that I thought Sensei would look after him. I'm such a fool. I never should have believed him. I should have taken him with me when Kushina disappeared. Some godfather I turned out to be. I'm sorry Minato, I failed. He said as he headed out of the main gate. This village was beyond saving. It is nothing more than a rotting leaf what will wither away. With Naruto, the blonde Jinchuriki is not having a good day. He was tired, exhausted, and pissed. His black jumpsuit had tears, scorch marks, and cuts on it, and blood was coming down his face from his forehead. He was clutching onto his right arm that had a gash on it and couldn't get it to stop bleeding because the sword one of the root's use was coated with poison that stopped his healing abilities. Right now he was backed up against a tree and was panting heavily. He managed to kill one of them, but the rest were closing in on him. This is it. I'm gonna be killed. Damn it, I can't let it end like this. But what do I do? Time begins to slow as the root members charge at him with their blades poised to kill, but then they suddenly stop when they heard growling, then more growls are heard around the dense jungle. What kind of animal sounds like that? A male root Anbu asks as he looks around. They suddenly tense up as they see a pair of glowing red slitted eyes staring at him from the bushes. Then more appear, only the eyes range from green, yellow, orange, and red. The root Anbu were surrounded by the glowing eyes and were waiting for them to attack. The first pair of eyes appear out of the bushes as its growl increase. Danzo's drones had look of shock, awe, and fear. What the hell is that? A female root asked as she readied her ninjutsu to kill this strange creature. The creature was in a way reptilian. It was 6 feet tall, 13 feet long, and weighed around 200 pounds. Its skin tone is a blackish-brown color, had a 2 light blue stripes starting from its neck to the end of its tail, and was white on the bottom. The creature also had a crest on the middle of its nose that was red, and it had feather quills on the back of its head that stopped to the end of its neck. Red eyes with slit were staring the root down. It also had a long thick tail that it could probably be used for combat, but that's not what freaked them out. On its long arms were 3 pairs of long black curved claws that appeared to be razor sharp, and on its feet were 3 claws, but the third one was longer and stood straight up and looked like it could cut a person open with a mere twitch. The creature then snarled and opened its maw, revealing a pair of razor sharp teeth that could rip through flesh like it was paper. This creature was a raptor. A predator beyond predators. It then crouched down a little while growling and then leapt into the air, shocking the root and Naruto, not believing that a creature of that mass could jump so high. It then landed between Naruto and the drones and looks at Naruto with a calculating eye. Said blonde felt like pissing his pants as it moved its large head towards his and sniffed him a few times. Its eyes widen a little but then return to normal, and then turns its body towards the roots and snarls at them. It then lets out a high-pitched roar, shocking everyone. It lasted for a few seconds, and to the root's fears, 13 more of them appear from the bush and in different colors. Some were dark brown with green slitted eyes, others were whitish-gray with blackish-brown spots and yellow slitted eyes, and the rest were orange with tiger-like stripes and orange slitted eyes. They had the roots trapped and were approaching them with caution. The raptors snarled and hissed at them, saliva was dripping from their teeth and their claws were poised to attack. Each one was anxious to rip them apart and to have the taste of flesh and blood in their mouths. Adrenaline was pumping through their body. They were excited at the fact that they'll eat well since there is plenty of food for them. They were waiting for their leader to give the command. They were ready. These ninja had the nerve to intrude in their territory, and now they were prey. The root were trembling in fear but held their ground with their swords ready to strike. The alpha, in Naruto's opinion, looked like it had a grin on its face, almost as if it was mocking the masked humans who thought they were the dominant species. The predator snorted at the thought. His species are natural-born killers. They know the surroundings of this place through their genes. He will admit, the ninja he's faced, killed, and eaten may have gained unique abilities, but they were still weak in his opinion. Not to mention that they are cowards who will betray each other at the last second. For some reason, Naruto felt sorry for the roots. He also prayed to Kami that the leader wasn't saving him for last because he didn't want to be on the menu. That was when the leader let out a loud roar that probably meant attack. The raptors roared back and then charged at the root with the intent to kill. One root rushed at one of them and thrusted his blade forward and having it impale the creature's head. The raptor, to the shock of the masked ninja, dodged the blade and lunged forward with its maw opened, ready to crush his head while the ninja tries to block the attack with his arm. Big mistake. The raptor clamps its jaws shut on his arm. He screams out in pain at the pressure from the bite and tries to use the sword in his free hand to stab the predator in the throat, but another one appears behind him and bites down on his shoulder. Blood sprays on its face. The ninja's screams grow louder as the one on its arms shoves him to the ground and they proceed on ripping him apart with their claws and teeth in a fast rate. The female root barley managed to evade the jaws of one and swung her blade at it only for it to stop the attack with its teeth and shattered the blade. She steps back in shock while another swings its tail at her and knocks her to the ground. The other raptor leaps and lands on her. Its sickle claw then impales her stomach and rips it open and her insides and blood spills out. She lets out a cry of agony while the other starts to rip out her entrails out and the other one held her down. Naruto watched in horror as he saw these creatures rip apart the root whose screams echoed through the jungle. One was dragged into the bushes by two of them and was torn apart. The sight of blood and organs were spraying all over the vegetation and Naruto couldn't help but turn green at the sight. Never before has he seen something so graphic. Other roots had their arms and legs ripped off forcefully. These raptors were vicious, fast, and merciless and were also very smart because they avoided being hit by their weapons. 10 minutes later the place was quiet and the pack of raptors were feasting on the dead bodies of the roots. Naruto, who watched the whole thing, did the only thing he could do. He fainted, which made the leader look at him wondering if he was still alive. He then approaches the blonde and nudges the unconscious boy for a while. He then barks at one of the male raptors who approach him and tilts his head over at the boy. The orange-colored predator looks at Naruto for a while and blinks. The alpha growls and chirps at the male who nods his head, walks over to Naruto. He picks the unconscious boy up by his hood with his teeth and places him on the leader's back, who runs off into the deep jungle with the boy. Kyuubi, who was watching the scene through Naruto's mind, chuckled. I should have known that contract was still around. Only his family's blood were able to summon him and his kin. Perhaps this boy will be the one to destroy that man and his clan's accursed eyes. Madara Uchiha, you and your clan are a plague to this world, and I'll make sure every single one of you end up in the stomach of the Shinigami. She growled and her eyes glowed red. Cabin in the jungles of Marsh Country. Naruto groaned as he slowly opened his deep cerulean eyes. He woke up to find himself in a bed and his jacket and shirt were gone. He had his pants on, but his chest, right arm, and forehead was bandaged. He looked over on a desk and saw a bowl of fruit and cooked meat on a plate. Naruto got up but grunted out in pain because of the pain in his arm. He then walked over to the plate and took a piece of meat off it and sniffed it. He then licked it with his tongue and took a small bite out of it. After he swallowed it, he then took a bigger bite out of it and proceeded to eat that and the fruit. After he ate it, he found a pair of blue cargo pants and a white shirt laid out for him. He puts that on and walks out of the room. Did you sleep well? A feminine voice asked. Naruto turned his head to see a female wearing a blue cloak with a hood covering most of her face, but she was smiling. She wore a red shirt with a black flak jacket and red cargo pants. Who are you and where is that creature I saw earlier? He asked, wishing he had a kunai on him. The hooded woman sighs and replies. Those were my summons. I usually have them patrol this area. I'm sorry if they scared you. She apologized. Naruto grinned sheepishly. Yeah, I'm just glad they didn't have me for dessert. She chuckles, but then her smile drops and tears fell from her eyes. Naruto. I'm sorry, she says while he looks at her with a confused look on his face. How do you know my name and why are you apologizing for? For not realizing that you've been alive this whole time. I'm sorry I didn't come back for you, but those bastard elders told me you died when the Kyuubi attacked, and I was so distraught and hurt when I lost your father that I didn't even bother to come back for you. She then walks over to him and pulls him into a hug and cries on the top of his head. Please. Don't hate me, Naru-chan. I swear I didn't know. I didn't know. Naruto blinks for a while and was a little uncomfortable with a stranger hugging him. Who exactly are you? He asked. She then lets go of him. Naruto, if I tell you who I am, will you promise not to explode on me? I won't, I promise, and I never break my promises. He says. Naruto, I'm your Ka-san. She says as she removes her hood, revealing a woman with red hair, blue eyes, and the face of an angel. Naruto's eyes widen and his hands hang down to his side. She's been alive this whole time, but why didn't she come back for wait? She said some bastard elders in Konoha told her I died, but why would they? Who is my father anyway? Oji said my parents died when Q attacked. His head hung down and his hair covered his eyes. Ka-san, can you do his one favor for me? He asked with a shaky voice. Kushina looked at him and knelt down to his level. He looked up at her with tears in his eyes. See, can I have another hug? He asked her and she instantly hugged him even tighter while he sobs onto her shoulder and returns the hug, hoping that this wasn't a dream or illusion. Right now he was happy. Happy that he had family in this world, even if it's just his mother. Kushina kissed him on the forehead and told him everything was going to be okay now. After that little reunion, Naruto told her how his life was in Konoha, and to say she was pissed was an understatement. How dare those fools do this to my son? Worse, they dishonored Minato-kun's dying wish. I'm so glad that I took Minato's inheritance with me. They will pay. I swear Konoha will pay for this. She said. Don't worry about them, Sochi. They can't get to you anymore. So tell me, did any good things happen to you? She asked, and Naruto's grin grew. He told her about all of the awesome parts of his life. Kushina's jaw dropped and her eyes were ready to bulge out of her head. Her face returned to normal and she grinned. So my boy not only had a bridge named after him, he is also the hero of not one, not two, not three, but 4 countries. Ha! Take that, Fugaku Tem, my son is better than yours. She said while pumping her fist in the air. Naruto's sweat dropped, as did Kyuubi. So she's who I get my energy from. He mumbled. After that, Kushina told him who his father was, and Naruto couldn't help but be happy. It hurt him that his father, the Yondaime, had to give up everything for that village, but understood his reasons. I'll make you proud, Dad. I'll become even greater than you. Even if I can't become Hokage, I'll be the strongest ninja in the world. He said while Kushina smiled. Naruto-kun, I'm taking you back to my former home, Whirlpool Country, to train you in the ways of the hunter and assassin. She said while he looked at her in shock. Let me explain. See, before my homeland was destroyed, the Uzumaki clan was a clan of hunters and assassins who were unrivaled. We usually take on missions that not even Anbu would do due to the high death risks involved. We also have a Kekkei Genkei called Shinkoke, spiritual blessing. It is a chakra-based bloodline of the Uzumaki clan. This bloodline makes it so an Uzumaki clan member has 5 times the regular amount of chakra control one has, making even ninja with cage level status look weak in comparison. But the downside is that with the amount of chakra control means a person needs to have a near supernatural physical endurance and physical energy, or else the control won't make a difference without any power to go with the used technique. Do you understand so far, son? Kushina asks while Naruto nods in shock. She smiles back. Good. Also, you should know that you also have your father's bloodline also. It's what gave him his title, the Kiroi Senku, Yellow Flash. It's called Shinsaku, Godspeed. I don't know much about it, but from what Minato Koi told me, it's a bloodline trait of the Namikaze clan that had been given to them by the Shunshin, Flash goddess, herself. The bloodline grants the person the ability to move at godlike speeds, and some could go just as fast or faster than the speed of light itself. Naruto's jaw was on the floor as she finished explaining his two Sans bloodline trait and can't help but grin like a madman. Kushina saw this and laughed. So when do we start training Ka-san? He asks while she stops laughing. Soon son, but first let me tell you about our summoning contract, because it was also the reason why Whirlpool Country was nearly wiped out. Our contract was considered the strongest and oldest of any other and has been around since the Rakudo Sennin, sage of the Six Paths, founded ninjutsu and created the shinobi world. This contract is known as the Ancient Creature Contract. The creatures in this contract are beings that have lived since the forming of the world and even before the Biju were known. Not only that, but the creatures who created this contract are capable going toe-to-toe against any summon or Biju, with their leader being on par with the Kyuubi. Kushina explained while Naruto's eyes widened. A summon whose power is on par with the Q. Unreal. Wow. So can you summon him, Ka-san? He asked while she shook her head. No, but I can't summon his mate who is the second boss, and she is one who you do not want to piss off, Sochi. She said, shuddering at the thought. Naruto blinked a few times and realized something. Wait, you said he has a mate who's the second boss? I thought there's only one boss for a contract. Most do only have one boss, but there are a few rare ones that have two who are mates, and there are also sub-bosses who the main boss or bosses leave in charge of a certain group of summons. Naruto scratches his head in confusion, and Kushina couldn't help but giggle at her son's face. Don't worry son, once we start your training I will help you with the more difficult things. Shouldn't you know most of this stuff already? She asked. Naruto looks down at the floor. No, my academics in the Ninja Academy were screwed up by those teachers and my sensei was too busy sucking up to the Uchiha. He muttered while Kushina was shocked that they would go so far as to ruin his ninja career. She puts a hand around her son to comfort him. Don't worry Sochi, because when I'm done with you, no one, not even the Sannin, will be a match for you. Kushina then gives him a serious look. Listen Naruto, the training I'm gonna give you is not something you should take lightly. I'm gonna work you to the ground and to the point where it'll hurt for you to blink. It's possible that you could die during this training. Do you still want to do this, Naruto? Naruto looks at her and can tell that she is not kidding. He ponders for a moment and then nods. Yes, I want to do this, Ka-san. I don't care how tough the training is. I want to make you and Dad proud of me. I will surpass Tu-san and I will become so strong that even the heavens will know my name. I swear on our family's name that I will not let you down, Ka-san. He said as his blue eyes burned with strength and determination. Kushina couldn't help but smile at his determination. She then walks over to the couch and picks up a black coat that has white fur around the collar, the Nadime's outfit minus the armor. Here son, put this on. We're going to Whirlpool Country to start your training. I also know a few friends in Kurigakure that can help you also. I know about this Akatsuki group that's after you, so we should get going. Naruto nods but is curious about something. I thought Whirlpool was destroyed, Ka-san. Said Namikaze, rubbed the back of her head in embarrassment and a blush appeared on her face. The village, yes, but not the environment. There are still plants and animals there, but most of them are dangerous and full of creatures that most people haven't seen. Naruto's sweat drops at his mom forgetting something important. Oh, he says and puts the coat on. Shall we get going, Ka-san? Naruto asks while she nods. Yes, let's go and start your tour, I mean training. She said with a glint in her eye that made a shiver go down Naruto's spine. For some reason I keep seeing the image of the Shinigami hovering over my mother's head pointing at me. He thought while Kyuubi was laughing her head off in the cage, feeling sorry for her container. In Konoha, when word got out in the village that Naruto was banished, the villagers partied saying that they were free of the demon brat, but most of the younger generation was confused at why they called him a demon when he hasn't done anything wrong. Sakura didn't care that he was gone and was glad that she didn't have to look at that idiot for the rest of her life. Iruka was pissed that this happened, and when he heard Kakashi say that he didn't deserve to be a ninja due to his lack of skill and talent, He punched the man right in the face and sent him flying into a building and threatened to cripple him if he ever said anything bad about Naruto. The same went with everyone else who insulted Naruto. Tsunade, who read Kakashi's reports on the team's progress, was pissed. He only taught Naruto and Sakura tree climbing while he taught Sasuke the Chidori, some fire jutsu, and Lee's taijutsu style. Hokage Tower. Tsunade was giving the son of the White Fang her most cold and icy glare while he was shifting his feet around nervously. The other Junin senseis were in the room looking at Kakashi wondering what he did to piss of the female Sannin. I've read the reports on your squad's progress, Hitaki, and I have to say this is the biggest load of crap I've ever read. She said while he looked at her nervously. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? He asked, but then jumped when she slammed the report on the desk, making Shizune and the others cringe. Cut the bullshit, Hitaki. I'm talking about how you trained your students. What the hell have you been doing with them? She demanded while Kakashi gulped. Well, you see, he started to say, but then was cut off by the leader of Konoha. Shut up. I don't want your stupid ass excuses. I want the truth. Now tell me why you only taught Naruto and Sakura tree walking while taking that Uchiha brat off for private training. Everyone's eyes grew wide when they heard that. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Asuma asked while looking at Kakashi, who had a bead of sweat going down his face. Tsunade then looks at the other Junin senseis. Tell me, guy. You have the most experienced team right now, so tell me, what have you taught them for the last year? She asked. Guy then rubs his chin for a while, then answers. I've taught them the chakra control exercises, had them work on their teamwork, and offered them some extra training if they wanted it, as well as gave them advice if they needed anything. The spandex wearer answered. Tsunade nodded and looked at Kurenai. And you, Kurenai? The Genjutsu mistress thought for a moment and replied. The same as Guy, and if I couldn't help them with their questions or give them good advice, I would recommend another person to help them. She answered, and the last Senju looked at Asuma. Same here, Hokage-sama, but if I may ask, what does our form of training have to do with Kakashi? He asked while Kakashi gulped. Simple, Asuma. Compared to all of you, Kakashi here is a fuck-up. She said while the copy nin flinched. Hitaki here spent the last 9 months giving the now traitor private training while leaving his other two to rot and practically end up getting themselves killed. It was by pure luck that they survived their first A-ranked mission as well as their first Chunin exam. What's worse is that when the now banished Naruto Uzumaki asked him for help when he had to face Neji Hyuga for the Chunin exams, he refused to help him and left him with a Junin who was like most of the villagers. They all looked at him in shock, and Kurenai narrowed her eyes at him. Is what the Hokage said true, Kakashi? Did you neglect 2 of your students just to train the Uchiha? She asked, saying the traitor's name with venom in her voice while the silver-haired Junin just looked away. Answer her question, Hitaki. Did you or did you not neglect your 2 students for the Uchiha? Tsunade commanded while Kakashi sighed and looked at Kurenai. Yes, I did, but my reason for doing it was, smack. He tried to explain but ended up getting slapped hard in the face courtesy to Kurenai Yuhi. Tsunade just watched and the male Junin looked at her with wide eyes. Reason. You have a fucking reason for neglecting 2 of your students. Yelled Kurenai while the males in the room backed away, not wanting to face her wrath. Kakashi had a look of shock on his face and slowly turned his head towards an angry Kurenai. Tell me your reason for neglecting 2 of your students, and don't give me any bullshit, because right now I feel like beating the shit out of you. The Genjutsu mistress said while releasing murderous intent on the frightened man. I did it B because Naruto didn't show A any talent as a ninja, and D doesn't deserve to be one. He only managed to get this far by luck. He replies. When those words came out of his mouth, the room temperature dropped. Tsunade, Kurenai, and Shizune were glaring holes into the scarecrow's head. That's it. That's your reason for neglecting his training. Because you thought he didn't have any talent. She said in a low voice. Kakashi nodded. Big mistake. Kurenai suddenly grabbed him by the collar of his flak jacket and slammed him into the wall. You fucking idiot. That's the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. No talent. He beat Neji and that kid from Suna and you have the nerve to say he doesn't have any talent. She roared. Kakashi was struggling to remove her hands. Kurenai, smack. He wheezed out but then got slapped again by her. Shut the fuck up, you pathetic excuse of a ninja. You're always spouting those WHO break the rules are trash, but those WHO abandon their comrades are less than trash. Well, guess what? Question mark. You're lower than trash. I can't believe you'd do that to him, especially when these short-minded fools made his life a living hell. The Yondaime would be disgusted with you. You, nothing but a damn hypocrite. She yelled while Asuma and Guy struggled to get her off of Kakashi. When they do, Kakashi falls to the ground gasping for air while Kurenai gives him her deadliest glare and spits on his face and calls him scum. Guy and Asuma release her and she storms out of the room and slams the door while they just stare at the door. While Asuma rubs the back of his head. Sorry about her outburst, Hokage-sama. He says while the last Senju waves it off. Think nothing of it, Asuma. I don't blame Kurenai for snapping like that. You and Guy are dismissed. She said and they nod but send Kakashi their own glares and then shunshin out of the tower. Tsunade then gets up and slowly walks towards Kakashi, who was still on the ground with his head down. She then grabs him by his hair and lifts him up till his eyes meet hers. Consider what Kurenai said to you as a form of mercy. As for your punishment, you are being demoted to Chunin status and you be spending the next 2 years doing double guard duty and will also be doing C-ranked missions and your pay will be cut in half after every mission. After that you'll be teaching at the academy until I deem you fit for the Junin rank. Now get out, Chunin. Your shift starts tomorrow and if you're late even once I'll have you thrown in jail for insubordination and your porn books will be burned by Kurenai Yuhi or any other kunoichi I pick. And tell that pink-haired brat outside to enter. She said as she released him and he walked out with his shoulders slumped. After he walked out, Sakura walked in with a nervous look on his her face. Why you wanted to see me, Hokage-sama? She asked while the Senju walked back to her desk and sat down. Yes, I did, and I want to let you know that your shinobi license is of right now suspended. She said while said girl jumped out of her seat with a shocked look on her face. What, why? She yelled out. Shut up and sit down, brat. Tsunade ordered and she did while whimpering. Look at you. You're pathetic and an embarrassment to kunoichi everywhere. You young lady are going back to the academy to get re-educated and also you'll be doing solo D-ranked mission without pay. Depending on how you progress I might reinstate your license. And you can forget about being my apprentice because you don't deserve it. Now get you sorry ass out of my building. She ordered and the pink-haired girl left the office wondering what she did to deserve this. Tsunade sighs and looks out the window and can't help but think that Naruto's banishment will come back to bite them in the butt and that is one bet she will no doubt win. Naruto Uzumaki is banished from Konohagakure and Hai no Kuni, and if he's not out of the village or country in less than 3 days he'll be declared as a missing nin and killed on sight. The War Hawk stated. You fools praise that traitor as if he was Kami, yet you treat the hero of this village like he was the devil reincarnated. My decision is final and this meeting is over. I have to go tell our hero that he's been banished by the very people and village he swore to protect. Tsunade said. Didn't I tell you, Kit? No matter what you do, these ninjin will never accept you. You should leave this hellhole and be done with them. To hell with your dream, they would never accept you as their cage. You know I'm right, Kyuubi said to her container. I'm sorry, Naruto, but you are banished from the village by order of the council. You have 3 days to leave the country or you will be declared a missing nin and killed on sight, she choked out. Naruto's eyes widen but he then hangs his head down and tears fell from his face. So they finally found a way to get rid of me, huh? I should have known this would happen sooner or later. Oh well, at least I'm finally out of this shithole. They what? Those bakas. Those short-minded, ignorant, self-centered bakas. Do they have any idea WHO they just banished? He yelled, releasing murderous intent like no tomorrow. Jiraiya, Tsunade started to say but then he glared at her. Tsunade, please. I don't want to hear it. Not now. Minato, you stupid fool, you should have let me or Sensei seal the fox into your son. He growled and then left the office, but not before slamming the door. I can't believe that I thought Sensei would look after him. I'm such a fool. I never should have believed him. I should have taken him with me when Kushina disappeared. Some godfather I turned out to be. I'm sorry, Minato, I failed. He said as he headed out of the main gate. The raptors roared back and then charged at the root with the intent to kill. One root rushed at one of them and thrusted his blade forward and having it impale the creature's head. The raptor, to the shock of the masked ninja, dodged the blade and lunged forward with its maw opened, ready to crush his head while the ninja tries to block the attack with his arm. Big mistake. The raptor clamps its jaws shut on his arm. He screams out in pain at the pressure from the bite and tries to use the sword in his free hand to stab the predator in the throat, but another one appears behind him and bites down on his shoulder. Blood sprays on its face. The ninja's screams grow louder as the one on its arms shoves him to the ground and they proceed on ripping him apart with their claws and teeth in a fast rate. The female root barley managed to evade the jaws of one and swung her blade at it only for it to stop the attack with its teeth and shattered the blade. She steps back in shock while another swings its tail at her and knocks her to the ground. The other raptor leaps and lands on her. Its sickle claw then impales her stomach and rips it open and her insides and blood spills out. She lets out a cry of agony while the other starts to rip out her entrails out and the other one held her down. Naruto watched in horror as he saw these creatures rip apart the root whose screams echoed through the jungle. Did you sleep well? A feminine voice asked. Naruto turned his head to see a female wearing a blue cloak with a hood covering most of her face, but she was smiling. Who are you? Naruto, I'm your Ka-san. She says as she removes her hood, revealing a woman with red hair, blue eyes, and the face of an angel. Naruto-kun, I'm taking you back to my former home Whirlpool country to train you in the ways of the hunter and assassin. She said while he looked at her in shock. Listen, Naruto, the training I'm gonna give you is not something you should take lightly. I'm gonna work you to the ground and to the point where it'll hurt for you to blink. It's possible that you could die during this training. Do you still want to do this, Naruto? Naruto looks at her and can tell that she is not kidding. He ponders for a moment and then nods. Yes, I want to do this, Ka-san. I don't care how tough the training is. I want to make you and Dad proud of me. I will surpass Tu-san and I will become so strong that even the heavens will know my name. I swear on our family's name that I will not let you down, Ka-san. He said as his blue eyes burned with strength and determination. I've read the reports on your squad's progress, Hataki, and I have to say this is the biggest load of crap I've ever read. She said while he looked at her nervously. What do you mean, Hokage-sama? He asked, but then jumped when she slammed the report on the desk, making Shizune and the others cringe. Cut the bullshit, Hataki. I'm talking about how you trained your students. What the hell have you been doing with them? She demanded while Kakashi gulped. Well, you see, he started to say, but then was cut off by the leader of Konoha. Shut up. I don't want your stupid ass excuses. I want the truth. Now tell me why you only taught Naruto and Sakura tree walking while taking that Uchiha brat off for private training. Kurenai narrowed her eyes at him. Is what the Hokage said true, Kakashi? Did you neglect 2 of your students just to train the Uchiha? Yes, I did, but my reason for doing it was, smack. He tried to explain but ended up getting slapped hard in the face courtesy to Kurenai Yuhi. Tsunade just watched and the male Junin looked at her with wide eyes. Reason. You have a fucking reason for neglecting 2 of your students. Yelled Kurenai while the males in the room backed away, not wanting to face her wrath. Kakashi had a look of shock on his face and slowly turned his head towards an angry Kurenai. Tell me your reason for neglecting 2 of your students and don't give me any bullshit because right now I feel like beating the shit out of you. The Genjutsu mistress said while releasing murderous intent on the frightened man. I did it B because Naruto didn't show A any talent as a ninja and D doesn't deserve to be one. He only managed to get this far by luck. He replies. When those words came out of his mouth, the room temperature dropped. Tsunade, Kurenai, and Shizune were glaring holes into the scarecrow's head. That's it. That's your reason for neglecting his training. Because you thought he didn't have any talent. She said in a low voice. Kakashi nodded. Big mistake. Kurenai suddenly grabbed him by the collar of his flak jacket and slammed him into the wall. You fucking idiot. That's the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. No talent. He beat Neji and that kid from Suna, and you have the nerve to say he doesn't have any talent. She roared. Kakashi was struggling to remove her hands. Kurenai, smack. He wheezed out but then got slapped again by her. Shut the fuck up, you pathetic excuse of a ninja. You're always spouting those WHO break the rules are trash, but those WHO abandon their comrades are less than trash. Well, guess what? Question mark. You're lower than trash. I can't believe you'd do that to him, especially when these short-minded fools made his life a living hell. The Yondaime would be disgusted with you. You, nothing but a damn hypocrite. She yelled while Asuma and Guy struggled to get her off of Kakashi. When they do, Kakashi falls to the ground gasping for air while Kurenai gives him her deadliest glare and spits on his face and calls him scum. Guy and Asuma release her and she storms out of the room and slams the door while they just stare at the door. I should have known that contract was still around. Only his family's blood was able to summon him and his kin. Perhaps this boy will be the one to destroy that man and his clan's accursed eyes. Madara Uchiha, you and your clan are a plague to this world, and I'll make sure that every single one of you end up in the stomach of the Shinigami. She growled and her eyes glowed red. 4 years later. Jungle Country Forest. The sky was dark and the light of the full moon was shining down on the forest of Jungle Country. The wind was blowing fast, making the plant life in the jungle sway back and forth. The cries of different animals echoed through the dark and dense jungle. It is said that night time is the time for those who have been sleeping and conserving energy during the day, come out to hunt at night. Darkness is the predator's best element because they can't be seen when they're stalking their prey. A black leopard with glowing yellow eyes moves and leaps through the trees while stalking an old wild boar who was digging through the soil with its tusks looking for shrubs and roots to eat. The hunted has to always be on alert at night because the hunter can strike from anywhere anytime, and if they let their guard down for even a second, it's over. The wild boar's head shoots up and turns its head in different directions while it sniffs the air, and its ears also move in different directions. It can't depend on its poor eyesight, so it depends on its other senses to alert it when a threat is nearby. The hunter doesn't rush an ambush, it analyzes what it hunts. Its sense of pattern, how it walks, the way it moves, everything. When the hunter sees an opening, it goes for it instantly. The leopard freezes and lowers its body slowly to blend with the darkness when the boar looks around. After the boar stops searching and continues to eat, the leopard slowly rises and continues to walking on the tree branch while eyeing the large pig. It then moves downwind to avoid having its scent being carried into the wind and in the boar's direction. It then crouches down and gets ready to pounce on the pig. Its claws are flexed and adrenaline is pumping into its body. The boar starts to get drowsy and starts to lie down. The leopard sees its chance and leaps into the air with its front claws stretched out. It lands on the startled boar and both animals wrestle on the ground. The squealing boar cries out in pain as the leopard's claws sink into its body and tears through it. The leopard avoids the tusks, and when it sees the jugular it opens its maw, revealing 4 long white canines, and sinks its fangs into the pig's neck. Blood seeps onto its tongue, making the big cat tighten its grip on the struggling pig's throat. The grip gets tighter and tighter until a bone-crunching snap is heard. The boar stops struggling and its body goes limp. The leopard waits for a few minutes and then drops the dead body, and it releases a victory roar that echoes through the forest. It then drags the boar's body into the trees where it can eat it without having to deal with the other hunters. In the world of the wild, it's survival of the fittest. Hunt or be hunted. Eat or be eaten. Kill or be killed. And the strong live and the weak die. This theory is used throughout the world and continues on. Two screams suddenly echo through the jungle and four blurs are seen leaping through the trees of jungle country. Three males and a female wearing Iwa Junin outfits and headbands were running away as if the Shinigami was after them. They landed on the ground and looked around the forest frantically while having looks of horror and fear in their eyes. They were breathing heavily and had their kunai out. They were Kiji, Yatsuki, and Karatsuki, and they were without a doubt afraid, very afraid. "Oh Kami. Did you see who got Seta and Jira?" "Who was that guy?" Kiji asked. I think that was the Ryushi Juti, hunter god," he said while Yatsuki and Karatsuki eyes widened in horror and looked at him. "Why, you're kidding. That man is a myth, a scary story kids are told." Karatsuki started to sweat like crazy. She lost her older brother to that bounty hunter, assassin, and when his body was brought back to the village, it was in a form that would make even a war veteran shinobi lose it. His head was gone with his body was torn to ribbons and was barely noticeable. What do we do? We can't escape. He won't let us. This is the Ryushi Juti we're talking about. It is said that he has never lost a bounty or failed an assassination mission. For those who somehow manage to escape, him will be hunted down and he will find you no matter what. He'll kill us. He'll kill us all. This is AS class going on SS class mercenary we're talking about. She shouted and heard a twig snap. Karatsuki jumped and threw a kunai at the tree only for a dead bird to hit the ground. "Damn it, Tasuki, calm down. He may be strong but he's only one man. We can take him if we work together," Yatsuki said with a smirk. His teammates look at him like he was stupid. "Baka. This isn't the time to get cocky. If we don't get out of here soon we'll die," Kiji yelled while Yatsuki scoffed at how his comrade was acting over one person. "Run away if you want to, coward, but I'm not," Yatsuki said with a cocky smile on his face. "If the Ryushi Juti is so big and bad, why doesn't he show himself? Hey Ryushi Juti, come on out and fight like a man. Come out and show us how scary you are." "Well, I'm waiting, you coward," he yelled out into the dense jungle, but all that was heard was the wind. The Iowa nin looks at his comrades smirking arrogantly. "See, there's no Ryushi Juti here. You guys got worked up over no, wop." Those were his last words when his body jerked backwards and was embedded into a tree branch with a black arrow lodged into his head. Karatsuki screamed in horror when she saw her teammate's body hang on the branch with a look of shock on his face before he died. "Fuck this, I'm out of here. Tasuki, it was nice knowing you," Kiji said and ran off into the jungle. "No, Kiji, wait, don't leave me here," she cried out, but said Iwa Nin was long gone. Not far from Karatsuki's location, a shadowy figure with glowing yellowish-orange slitted eyes that had a tint of red in them was watching as he managed to get the Iwa who was mouthed off too much. He saw the other male run away into the jungle and couldn't help but shake his head at the coward. Fool. To leave a comrade behind in the face of danger is a cowardly act. He places his black compound bow on his back while staring at the female nin who was trembling in fear and then looks at the path the other nin went. Might as well deal with the coward. He mutters to himself and vanishes from the tree branch. Kiji was running at full speed through the jungle, swatting leaves and jumping over branches, trying to look for the border and get out of here. Sorry Tasuki, but in the ninja world it's survival of the fittest. The strong live and the weak die. That's the laws of Natu Ag. He screamed out in pain when 3 arrows lodged into his body. One lodged into his spine, the other pierced his lung and the last one into the back of his knee, going through the bone with the arrow head sticking out of the front of his knee. He lost all feeling from his lower body and tumbled onto the ground a few times, and then he rolled off into a deep ditch and hit the ground hard, breaking a few ribs and dislocating his left arm. The man rolled over on his back and released a cry of agony and pain. Blood was seeping from a gash on his head and he had multiple cuts and scrapes on his body. He struggles to get up, but the pain was too much. That and he could no longer feel his legs. He then looks up and his eyes widen in horror as he saw a shadowy figure was glaring down at him. "Why you? It can't be. You can't be real. You just can't." He cried out in horror. The Ryushi Juti narrows his yellowish-orange red tinted slitted eyes at the man while three more shadowy figures that appeared to be reptilian approached the man and growled at the trapped Iwa Nin who was trembling in fear and sweating bullets. You're not worthy to die by my hand. Instead I'll let my friends here deal with you. They haven't had a decent meal for a while and I'm sure they would enjoy tearing you apart. He replies in a dark tone while the raptors snarled, revealing razor-sharp teeth and saliva dripped from their mouths. Enjoy your meal my Shiryu Hanryo, hunting partners. The Ryushi Juti replied and walked away. The raptors grinned at the whimpering Nin. They then roar and leap down into the ditch and started to rip their meal apart. Kiji's blood-curdling screams echoed through the forest due to the fact that he's being eaten alive by the ultimate predators. Kuratsuki's body was shaking like crazy when she heard the roars and Kiji screaming, and after that, silence. Tears formed from her dark green eyes and she was hugging her body while her lip was quivering. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. She chanted to herself but doesn't hear the shadowy figure land behind her and looks down at the frightened Kunoichi. He then wraps his arms around her body and she lets out a yelps. He then leans next to her ear and speaks in a deep tone that wasn't cruel, dark or violent. Don't struggle Kunoichi-san, I'm not going to kill you. He says and could see tears falling from her face. Ryushi Juti. She whimpered while the man nods. Hi, I'm him. YUK killed my brother Yoshi. She said and couldn't help but blush a little when her body pressed against his well-toned one. I see. I killed that trash because he was the one kidnapping and raping younger girls and women. Scum like him has no place in the world, so I'm sorry for your loss. Did you want to avenge him? He asked while she shook her head. No, I don't, I swear. Shaw said. Good, because I don't want to kill a pretty girl like you. He said in a playful voice, making her eep, and then got serious again. I'm gonna let you go now, but you must never go back to Iwagakure. Your cage doesn't like failure, and if I know that man, he'll either kill you or sell you to a brothel, and I'm sure you don't want that. She nods at that and speaks. What do I do then? If I don't go back, I'll become a missing nin and will be hunted down by my village's hunter nin. You leave your death to me and I assure you they will not come after you at all. He answers. Okay. I'll trust you to do that. I won't go back to Iowa at all. Kuratsuki said, and he nods at her. Good, but how do I know you'll keep your end of the deal? I'll need more than your word that you won't go back. He whispers and breathes into her ear. A shiver goes up her spine and she bites her lower lip. What can I do to prove to you that I'll keep my end of the deal? She asks when her blush increases while he smiles under his mask. I'm sure you know Kunoichi-chan. He says and caresses her cheek with his hand. Kuratsuki went from scared as hell to turned on in less than 8 seconds. Next morning, the sun shone through the window of a hotel room and Kuratsuki was sleeping in a bed. The sunlight hits her eyelids and she slowly opens them. Her form was covered in bed sheets and she slowly gets up while wiping a strand of her brown hair from her face. She then sees a robe on a hanger and grabs it to cover up her body. After she wraps the sash around, she sees a letter on the table and picks it up to read it. If you've just started to read this letter to Suki-chan, then I'm already gone. I promise to keep Iowa of your back and you'll be considered the few who have been spared by me. Hopefully, we'll meet again, and if we don't, then enjoy your new life, and if you want to go another round then let me know and I'll be more than happy to give you a repeat of our activities from last night. Sincerely, Ryushi Juti. After reading the letter, the former Iwa Kunoichi couldn't help but blush and giggle pervertedly at what they did last night. That man was a stamina freak in the bed, and what made it better was how big he was. She passed out after the 5th orgasm she had and sighed dreamily, hoping that she would meet him again while looking out the window. The Ryushi Juti was now in the jungles of Uzu no Kuni, walking through the tropical forest, and sneezed. That woman must be thinking about me. Man, could she scream? He said to himself. The Ryushi Juti was 6 feet 0 and 17 years old. He wore a short-sleeved dark blue hooded trench coat and also wore a pair of black cargo pants with Anbu-styled boots. On his upper body he wore a black long-sleeved skin-tight muscle shirt that hugged his body like a second skin and showed off his arms, chest, and abs and had deep blue slitted eyes that radiated power. He also wore a gray-colored flak jacket that was zipped up and had extra pockets on them and a collar. He also wore a black mask that covered half of his face and a pair of long blonde spiky bangs that were crimson at the ends but stopped to the sides of his face. He also had on black fingerless gloves that had metal plates on them and also wore armguards on his arms, the ones Kakashi wore during the Third Shinobi War. Strapped to his back was a black compound bow and arrow and also a black katana. The hilt was black and had 5 holes and a silver metal tip at the end. The guard was silver and the sheath was black, Snake Eyes blade from G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobras. He also had 2 knives strapped to his belt as well as 2 on his right and left leg. He walked out of the forest. He walked out of the jungle and into a clearing where a compound that was not too big or not too small and it had a red spiral emblem on front of the roof. The roof was dark green and the compound was like any other. In the front yard were a variety of plants and in the middle of the front yard was a large fountain in the form of a T-Rex and looked like it was roaring at the sky with water falling from it. When he took his 5th step a barrage of throwing knives came at him with deadly accuracy and speed. He instantly flings his bow and arrows of his shoulders and pulls out his blade. It was a stainless steel blade with a partial serrated edge. He deflects all the knives with the katana. A figure wearing a black cloak jumped out of the trees and towards Ryushi with a katana with a red hilt and golden guard ready to slice him in half. Ryushi blocked the attack with one arm and the cloaked figure flipped over him and landed on the ground in a crouching position. She then jumps up and gets into a sword stance with her blade in a thrusting position. She had long red hair with silver highlights that was tied into a ponytail and appears to be 14. She also wore a red and black ninja outfit with armguards and black fingerless gloves and black sandals. She wore a mask that covered half of her face and had bluish-green slitted eyes. Ryushi had his left hand behind his back and twirled his sword a few times and pointed it at her. The tension in the air was thick. A leaf was slowly making its way to the grass and when it lands they then run at each other at Junin-level speeds and their blades clash as they pass each other. The redhead then turns around and positions her blade into a thrusting form and aims it at Ryushi. He moves to the left as she passes him and swings his sword at her head but she ducks and ends up loosing a few strands of hair. She then swings at his legs but he leaps over her and lands back on his feet and then pulls a throwing knife out his left hand and throws it at her. She deflects it with her katana but her eyes widen when she him coming at her launching a barrage of slashes and thrusts at her. She dodges, blocks, and parries the attack while he keeps up the onslaught. The redhead then vanished when he performs a thrust at her head but then does a roundhouse kick to his right and hits the redhead in the stomach getting a grunt from her and skids back a little hold her stomach. Ryushi appears behind her and before she could react, he grabs her wrist and twists it behind her back and places sharp part of his sword at her throat. She freezes when she sees this and drops her kunai. "I yield," she said while he released her. The redhead rubs her wrist painfully while he sheathes his sword. She then retrieves her sword and sheathes it. Clapping was heard and 2 figures walked out of the forest. On was female who was 5 feet 8 with red hair and wore a black and red ninja outfit that hugged her body. She had greenish-blue cerulean slitted eyes and had the face of an angel. She wore a black trench coat and had a blue clip in her hair. She also had a nodashi strapped to her back. The hilt was a blood-red color and the sheath was black and red. Next to her was a man who was 6 feet 2 and wore an outfit similar to Ryushi's but it was silver gray and black. He also had shoulder-length silver hair and icy blue slitted eyes. On his back was a broadsword with a double-edged blade. The guard and hit were in the form of a miniature skeletal dragon, Dante's Sword Rebellion from Devil May Cry. They were Kushina and Anishi Uzumaki, the aka Arashi, Red Storm, and Shippo Mashin, Silver Devil. They were both S to SS ranked nin with a flea on-site orders. Good show Sochi, son, Otome, daughter. Kushina said smiling at her kids. They both eye smile at their mother and nod. Ryushi removed his hood and mask revealing wild spiky blonde hair that stopped to his shoulders and a masculine face that was derived of baby fat, and he had canines protruding from his upper lip and had a whiskerless face. He was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. The smaller redhead removed her mask, having the same appearance as her mother and canines like her Aniki. Arigato ka-san. To-san, how did I do? She asked her father, who grinned at her and ruffled his daughter's hair. You did great, Kasumi-chan. I'm impressed with how strong you've gotten, especially at your age. He said while she blushes and rubs her nose with her finger. Yaimouto, you almost got me to use both of my arms that time. Naruto said smiling at her and flicks her on the forehead. Itai. Naruto, ni don't do that. She cried while rubbing her forehead and glaring at her brother. Kushina and Anishi laugh at this and couldn't help but smile. When Kushina introduced him to her half-sister, they were inseparable. When he met Anishi, his Kifu stepfather, he was reluctant at first that he would treat him like the villagers did, but the man proved him wrong and treated him like a father would treat his son and even helped in training him. Anishi's was calm, laid back, and a goof, but when he's pissed or his family's lives are in danger, he becomes cold and ruthless. So Naruto, how did your hunting trip go? The silver-haired man asked while Naruto snorted. Lame, those Iwa nin were pushovers, so I didn't take their heads. But I did meet a hot kunoichi and well, you know. He said while his grin grew, as did Anishi's, who patted the blonde Namikaze on the shoulder. That's my son. Just like your old man, wooing women and then getting them in bed. Sniff. I couldn't be any more prouder. He said as anime tears went down his face. Kushina and Kasumi's eye twitched and smacked them both upside the head. Anishi, do you want to sleep alone tonight? And Naruto, I'll ground you from eating ramen and dango for a month. She said, making them go pale and get on their knees, then beg her not to do that, doing the puppy eyes jutsu. Kushina was a sucker for that jutsu and decided not to do that, and they both glomped her, rubbing their cheeks against her while she struggled to breath and was turning blue. Kasumi was on the ground laughing at her mother and kicking her feet in the air. After that scene was over and Kushina got her breath back, Naruto spoke up. So Ka-san, how did the mission in T-Country go? He asked while Kasumi snorted. Lame. Those aim nin were weak, especially the one who had the Raijin no Ken, Sword of Thunder. His name was Aoi Rokusho, and he thought the Nadaime Hokage's weapon made him invincible and resulted in him losing his head and me getting a new trophy. She said and pulls out a hilt and activates it. A yellow lightning blade appears and she then deactivates it and puts it away. What amazes me is how a weakling like him managed to steal it and get out of Konoha while not being hunted down for stealing something like this. If that's the strongest village in the elements, then I don't want to see the weakest. She said to herself. Naruto's eye became icy when he thought of that village. It brought up nothing but bad memories. He was always beaten on his birthday, stores and restaurants always kicked him out, except for Ichiraku and the Higarashis, who were always kind to him. His so-called friends only thought of him as the dead last and didn't take his career as a shinobi seriously. Too bad for them that he is now one of the most dangerous nin in the elemental nations with a flea on-site order. Kasumi saw the faraway look on her brother's face and frowned, as did Kushina and Anishi. When Anishi found out how terrible Naruto's life was, he wanted to raze that village to the ground. Naruto, ni, are you okay? She asked and places a hand on his shoulder. Naruto looks at her and smiles. Yeah, I am. I'm just happy to be out of that hellhole and with my family. He said and wrapped an arm around his little sister. Imagine their reaction when they find out that I'm the Ryushi Juti. They'll be begging me to come back, but too bad for them, I won't. If anything, I would rather join Kumo or Kiri. He said while they nodded. Anyway, I'm going to Nami no Kuni to see Tazuna and his family. You guys want to come? Naruto asks them. Kushina shakes her head, as does Anishi. Sorry Naruto, but we're bushed from the traveling, but I'm sure Kasumi would like to join you. Yeah, you two go on ahead to Nami. We'll be resting for a while. Anishi says and wraps an arm around Kushina's waist. Naruto and Kasumi twitch when they saw this. Yeah, let's go Ni-san, I want to see Inari-chan and Tsunami Obasan. She replies and drags her brother away from them too. Once they were out of sight, Anishi grins and moves the hand he had on her waist to her ass cheek and squeezes it, making Kushina jump a little. Eek! Anishi, you pervert! She yells when she turns to punch him but sees him running like crazy to the compound with her in pursuit. Oi! Get back here and take your punishment like a man! She screamed while he laughed as he ran into the house. Naruto and Kasumi were sitting on a crocodile that was the size of a great white shark reading the latest bounties in the bingo book. Benihime, Crimson Princess, the Kyuubi was out of Naruto's body and in the form of a kid with crimson-colored fur sleeping in Kasumi's lap and purring when she scratches her behind the ears. Hey Ni-san, the Stone Bear of Iwa and the Thunder Lion of Kumo's bounties went up. Want to go after them when we finish visiting Tazuna and his family? She asks while Naruto nods. Sure. I haven't faced any strong missing nin. That and I need some new trophies in my collection. He said like it was the most simple thing in the world while Kasumi sighs. When her brother faces a strong nin, he keeps their heads and headbands as trophies. She does the same but keeps mostly the headbands. So how many do you have now, Naruto ni? Kasumi asks as she turns a page. Naruto thinks about it and answers. 150 from Iwa, 95 from Kumo, 87 from Suna, 60 from Konoha, 75 from Kiri, Aim, and Kusa and 50 from Takiwai. He asks but she slumps her shoulders. Damn, you beat me by 25. Oh, and I get the bounty on the Stone Bear since you got the highest one last time. She answers and shrugs his shoulders. Kasumi was without a doubt a money-hungry hunter. He liked money too, but she loves it. Just like Anishi, but he wastes his on sake and gambling. Him and Ba-chan would get along well since they both love sake and gambling, but Anishi is good at gambling. He thought while the crocodile takes them to Nami. Konohagakure no Sato. In the Hokage Tower, Tsunade couldn't help but sigh as she looked out the window and at the village. For the past 4 years, Konoha has not been doing well, and that is due to the fact that they banished Naruto. After his banishment got out to the other countries, the leaders that Naruto helped were furious. Tazuna, the mayor of Wave, had cut off all trading routes that went through Fire Country and tripled the prices for imported and exported goods that went to Konoha and any other place in Fire Country. And traded the majority of their goods with Kumo, Kiri, and Suna, and also sent all the missions they originally give Konoha to said villages. The council tried to send ambassadors to Wave and try to make a new treaty with them, but they were kicked out the second they set foot on the land by either the samurai who patrol the borders or by the hired nin. The council even went so far as to threaten and take Wave Country by force. When Kumo and Kiri heard this, they threatened Konoha with war if they interfered with their business again. The leader of T Country also cut off the trading ports and businesses with Konoha and did them with Suna and Kumo. When Gaara, Sunagakure's new cage heard the news, he was mad beyond belief and he created a sandstorm that stretched all the way to Fire Country's borders. He then went to the Wind Daimyo's palace and asked for him to cancel the new treaty they were planning as well as cut off the alliance except the one where they assist each other in war. The Wind Daimyo asked why, and Gaara explained what had happened to him during the Suna-Oto invasion. Needless to say, the man agreed with him and cancelled the alliance and new treaty. Koyuki Kazuhana, the daimyo of Harugakure, was furious beyond belief when she found out Naruto was banished from Konoha. She, along with 100 of her samurai and 40 of her ninja, and marched all the way to Konoha demanding an audience with the Hokage. When she had a meeting with Tsunade and the council, she wanted to know why she banished Naruto from Konoha. The elders responded by saying that the council banished him when he failed to bring back the last Uchiha and also because he contained the Kyuubi no Kitsune. After they said that, she rose from her seat and cursed every single one of them out, saying words that made her samurai and ninja blush. Who knew that the spring daimyo had such colorful language? After that, she cut off all alliances with them and refused to send any more missions to them and stopped sending them technology. She also refused to star in Jaria's Ika Ika movie, giving the man a heart attack. The council tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't hear it. She told them all to piss off, and the only way she'd consider an alliance with them is if they removed Naruto's exile. Other than that, she left the village and did an alliance with Kumo and Kiri. It only got worse a few months later when the fire daimyo came demanding why he got complaints from the country leaders about the banishment of a Naruto Uzumaki and why they cut off or tripled the cost of their resources that went to their country. Once Tsunade explained the reason, the man wasn't happy and cut Konoha's military and economic budget by 40% and stated that he would send all high-ranking missions he got for them to Suna, and the council asked why. He said it was because, unlike Konoha, who dishonored the dying words of a former Kage and blamed an innocent child for the deaths of many, Suna accepted their Jinchuriki and made him their new Kage, and the new Kage said that it was thanks to Naruto that he changed his view on life. After that, he left while the council begged him to change his mind, but he just ignored them. Tsunade sighed in frustration and rubbed her temples to get rid of the headache she had coming. It was the villagers' fault that they were in this condition. If only they'd honored the Yondaime's dying wish, then they wouldn't be suffering. She had her Anbu look for the blonde, but the search failed. It was like he disappeared from the elemental nations. She prayed that he wasn't captured by the Akatsuki. Jiraiya's spy network couldn't even find him. Hopefully he's somewhere happy and living his life. That's when an Anbu with a cat mask appeared kneeling in front of her superior. Hokage-sama, the council is in the meeting room waiting for you to come. She replies while Tsunade nods and gets up from her seat, heading for the meeting room. Council chambers. The clan heads and elders council were in the meeting room waiting for Tsunade to appear. The door opens, revealing the Godime Hokage, who went to her chair and sat down. Hokage-sama, glad you could make it. We need to talk about a certain ninja that has gotten a lot of attention lately. Danzo said while opening his only eye. Tsunade sighs and rubs her temple. What ninja, may I ask, Danzo? I have a busy schedule, so make this quick, she said in an irritated voice while the Warhawk nodded. He goes by the name Ryushi Juti, Hunter God. He said, getting shocked looks from everyone, even from Sum. What are you talking about, Danzo? The Ryushi Juti is a myth, a fairy tale grown-ups make up to scare little kids, said Inoichi, who also heard the name but thought he was just a legend. I agree with Inoichi on this one. If the Ryushi Juti was real, then we would at least have a picture or something, Choza said while Hiashi nodded. I must agree also. There's no way for some of his reputation can be real if we don't have any proof that he is. I didn't come to this meeting to hear some child's fairy tale. The Ryushi Jote is said to a freelance bounty hunter who is said to have never lost a bounty or fail in an assassination mission. Not to mention he takes on missions that make our Anbu look like amateurs, and his tracking abilities make the Inuzuka clan look like a joke, the Hyuga head says while Sum glares at him. I too must agree with Hiashi-san's logic. The way people talk about this bounty hunter seems too far-fetched. It doesn't change the fact that Iwa has listed this man as an S-going-on-SS ranked nin with a flea on-site order. I'm sorry to say that this man is nothing more than a ghost, Shibi said. Shikaku was thinking about this man that has Iwa and the criminal underworld scared and muttered, troublesome. I believe that the Ryushi Juti is real, Hiashi-san, Shibi-san. The Nara clan head said while Inoichi looks at his teammate in shock, as do the other clan heads. Troublesome? Let me explain. The Ryushi Juti was said to have appeared about 3 years ago, killing a group of missing Iwa nin and pirates who raided a porting village in river country, but after that he disappears. A couple of months after that, a lot of missing nins' bodies appear at the borders of each country with their heads missing and their bodies torn to ribbons. Also, it's possible that the man doesn't leave anything behind to prove that he exists. No tracks, clothing, damaged weapons, nothing. It's like he vanishes once he gets a job done and makes sure no one can find him. Kinda like a ghost. Another reason he does this is because he knows that every single village or organization will want him on their side and doesn't want to deal with that since he doesn't want to be tied to a village. It would not only ruin his line of work, but it'll be easier for his enemies to find and kill him. He'd probably beat me in a game of shogi. He opined while everyone took in his explanation. What Shikaku speaks is true. The Ryushi Juti is indeed real, said a voice from the window. Tsunade turned her head to see her former teammate leaning against the wall. Jiraiya, how long have you been here? Tsunade asks. For a while. If I were you Haim I wouldn't try to seen Anbu after him. Iwa tried that once and ended up losing 35% of their Anbu and Hunter Nin. They were all brought back to Iwa's borders with their heads missing and their bodies torn to shreds. The Toad Sage said with a grim look on his face. Why you're kidding. He destroyed a small fraction of Iwa's forces like that. He must be at least Sanin or Cage level to be able to pull that off. Sum said with a look of awe on her face. I kid you not. If he's strong enough to do that, then our Anbu will be no match for him. I doubt if I could take him on and live. I might injure him but it'll cost me my life. I would recommend not provoking him at least until we get more info on him. He said. Tsunade nodded. Then it's settled. We will not go after the Ryushi Juti until we have more info on him. If I find out that any of you have sent Anbu to find him I will have you thrown in jail and stripped of your positions. She ordered while glaring at the elders. She gets up and leaves the office, hoping that this legendary hunter does not come to Konoha. Oh Kami. Did you see who got Seta and Jira? Who was that guy? Kiji asked. I think that was the Ryushi Juti, hunter god. He said while Yatsuki and Kuratsuki eyes widened in horror and looked at him. Why you're kidding. That man is a myth, a scary story kids are told. Kuratsuki started to sweat like crazy. There's no Ryushi Juti here. You guys got worked up over no, wop. Those were his last words when his body jerked backwards and was embedded into a tree branch with a black arrow lodged into his head. Kuratsuki screamed in horror when she saw her teammate's body hang on the branch with a look of shock on his face before he died. Why you? It can't be. You can't be real. You just can't. He cried out in horror. The Ryushi Juti narrows his yellowish-orange-red tinted slitted eyes at the man while three more shadowy figures that appeared to be reptilian approached the man and growled at the trapped Iwa Nin who was trembling in fear and sweating bullets. You're not worthy to die by my hand. Instead I'll let my friends here deal with you. They haven't had a decent meal for a while and I'm sure they would enjoy tearing you apart. He replies in a dark tone while the raptors snarled, revealing razor-sharp teeth and saliva dripped from their mouths. Enjoy your meal my Shiryu Hanryo, hunting partners. The Ryushi Juti replied and walked away. The raptors grinned at the whimpering Nin. They then roar and leaped down into the ditch and started to rip their meal apart. Kiji's blood-curdling screams echoed through the tropical forest due to the fact that he's being eaten alive by the ultimate predators. Bandit camp near the borders of Kaminari no Kuni and Hai no Kuni. Two unmasked Anbu from Konoha were tied up in a tent with all their weapons and armor gone, leaving them in sleeveless shirts and black pants. They had bruises, cuts and a black eye on their beautiful faces. One appeared to be 20 and had red markings on her faces, long brown hair that had a few bangs and was tied into a ponytail. She was Hana Inuzuka. The other female appeared to be 24 and had long purple hair that stopped to her mid-back and ivory-colored skin. She was Yugo Azuki. Both her and Hana were returning back to Konoha after completing an assassination mission. They were exhausted from the mission and were attacked and captured by two missing Nin from Kumo and Iwa. They were the Kuma Ishi, Stone Bear, and the Shishi Hekareki, Thunder Lion, missing Nin from Kumo and Iwa, wanted for the kidnapping and raping of women, both civilian and kunoichi. They were stripped of their weapons and thrown in a tent where they'd be used for stress relief. They also saw a bunch of other missing Nin that had women in cages who were crying and begging for help while the men just laughed at them. They got smoked around for a while and then the two left the tent. Hana had a few broken ribs and swore that she could smell blood which was flowing down the side of her hair. Same with Yugo. The Inuzuka heiress groaned in pain as she turned over to Yugo, who was coughing up blood and spat. Damn it. I swear if I get out of this I'll castrate those bastards. She said, but winced in pain as she heard a rib pop. Kuso. My ribs. Hana nods but was too weak to talk. She knew that they would not get out of this and they'd be raped and killed once they're no longer needed. She was cursing inwardly. She'll never see her Ka-san, brother, partners, friends, family or clan again, and worse, she was gonna have her innocence taken from her by a rapist. When these thoughts came to her mind, she couldn't help but have tears fall from her eyes. Yugo saw this and couldn't help but feel sorry for her. It seems life is cruel after all, she said bitterly while Hana was sobbing quietly. Outside of the tent and in the camp, the missing nin and bandits were drinking, laughing and harassing the women they caught who were in cages. Meanwhile, two figures in the shadows with yellowish-orange colored eyes were watching this from the trees. Those pigs. Who do they think they are, treating women as if they were playthings? I swear none of them will leave this forest alive. Kasumi snarled, trying to keep herself from charging into the camp. Naruto wanted to do the same. He already had summoned raptors around the area and near the camp. I know, Kasumi. Wait a minute, he said as he saw a missing IWA nin open a cage and drag a female out. Come on, bitch, he snarled as he dragged the kicking and screaming woman into the forest. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Stay here, Imouto, I'll deal with that scum, he says, getting a nod from her and vanishes. In the forest, the Iowa nin was swearing as he dragged the kicking and screaming woman through the forest. He had enough and grabbed her by the collar and slapped her. The woman had short brown hair and gray eyes. She yelped as she fell onto the ground. The Iowa nin grinned and unzipped his pants, revealing his erect member. The woman looks at him with horror and fear in her eyes. Don't worry. You'll enjoy this, you slut, he said. The Iowa nin was about to make his way towards the frightened woman until his body jerked. He looked down to see a blade that was coated with his blood going through his chest. He coughed up blood as the blade was twisted and removed from his body, and the nin fell to the ground and remained motionless. The woman looked up to see a masked, hooded figure with yellow-orange slitted eyes staring down at her with what looked like a hilt-less sword with cutouts, teeth-like serrations on the front and back, and a piercing point. He then flicks the blood off the sword and sheathes it. The woman whimpered and curled up into a ball when he walked towards her and knelt down. Are you all right? He asked in a concerned tone. She just looks at him for a while and nods. Good. Now go. There's a town not far from here. You should be able to get shelter, he said, and got up only for her to reach out and grab his arm. Thank you, she said, and kisses him on the cheek and runs off. Naruto sighs and then leaps into the trees while a raptor's head appears from a bush and grabs the dead nin by the head with its teeth and drags it away. Kasumi was watching another nin urinate in a bus and she pulls out a black combat knife. She lands behind him and before he could react, she shoves the knife into his groin hard. He was about to let a scream, but she covered his mouth with her hand and jerks his head to the left hard, snapping his neck. He falls to the ground and gets dragged away by another raptor. Kasumi wipes the knife off with a leaf and leaps back into the trees. Naruto was making his way through the tree branches and stops when he sees 4 Iwa Chunin guarding a cage that had 5 women in M. He pulls the same blade out and leaps off the tree and grabs a branch with his left arm and swings around it once and lands on it. He then leaps off it and into the air and descends towards his targets with the sword raised. One Chunin looks at his shadow and sees it get bigger. He then looks up into the air to see a hooded figure come down at him with a blade raised and gets sliced in half by Naruto as he lands in a crouching position, causing the women who saw it scream. The other Chunin doesn't even a chance to react when Naruto removes his head from his shoulders. He stabs the other Chunin through the heart and leaves his blade embedded in his body and grabs a Chunin who tried to escape and alert the others by his collar, pulls him forward and knees him hard in the spine, which snapped in two, ending his ability to walk. The nin tries to scream out in pain only to have his mouth covered by Naruto's hand, who pulls out a survival knife and slits his throat. Blood seeps out of the gash from his neck and the Iwa nin's eyes rolled up into his sockets and dies. He sheathes his knife and walks towards the still shocked Chunin, who still had the blade in his heart. "Our Ryushi Juti," was all he said when Naruto yanks his blade out hard, causing blood to fly off and decapitates him. The headless body falls to the ground and the head rolls around for a second, then stops. He then walks over to the cage that had 5 girls in it and rips the lock off the door and opens it. "Go," was all he said, and vanishes in a blur. The women waste no time and run before more came. 5 large Komodo dragons appeared from the bushes and dragged the carcasses away to eat. Kasumi just took down 2 Junin and 3 Chunin with what looked like a naginata with the head of a dragon that had its mouth opened and was holding the silver blade. She then seals it back into a seal she had on her wrist and then runs over to a bush, pulls her mask down over her mouth and vomits. She then coughs a few times and breathes slowly. Naruto then appears beside her and rubs her back slowly. "You alright?" he asks her, and she nods as she puts her mask back on over her face. "Let's get this over with. I've already stabbed and castrated half of them in the groin, and if I have to do it again I'm gonna lose it." Kasumi mumbles while Naruto chuckles. "Well then, let's finish this," he says while 2 raptors appear in front of them. They were 6 feet tall and weighed 200 pounds. One was a reddish-orange color with black stripes all over and a white underbelly. Its eyes were orangish-red and had slitted pupils. Razor-sharp teeth were in its mouth and also had pitch-black claws on its arms and feet, and white spiky quills started from its head to the back of its neck. The other one was white with greenish-black stripes and green slitted eyes. "Inform the others to get ready to attack the camping site when I do that jutsu, but don't harm the females," Naruto ordered. The 2 raptors growl lowly and nod, then vanish into the forest. "Let's get started," he said, and performs 2 hand seals. "Kurigakur no jutsu, hidden mist technique," he muttered in a low voice. Meanwhile, the Kuma Ishi, Stone Bear, and the Shishi Hekareki, Thunder Lion, Guro and Majima walked into the tent where Hana and Yugo were in and grinned with lust in their eyes. Guro was bald and wore a brown flak jacket with no shirt and brown pants. He had 3 scars going down the right side of his face. Majima had wild spiky short hair and wore an outfit similar Goro's, only he wore a gray flak jacket and pants and a black shirt. "You 2 put up one hell of a fight when we brought you in," Guro said as he leered at Hana, who was shivering as he kneeled down next to her and traced his hand from her neck to her chest and stopped there and squeezed it. Hana whimpered when he did that while he chuckled. Yugo, whose face was cupped by Majima, glared at the man with all the hate she could muster. "You shouldn't glare, cutie. That look makes you appear ugly. Come on, let's see a smile on that pretty face," he said, only for her to spit saliva and blood on his face. He wipes it of his face and a look of rage appears on his face. He smacks Yugo hard, making her fall to the ground face first. He then kicks her in the ribs, making her hiss out in pain. "You bitch. I tried being nice, but now you're gonna get put in your place, and that is as a slave, you fucking whore." He snarls and turns her on her back. Guro was laughing at this and grabbed Hana by her hair, getting a hiss of pain out of her, and pulls her to his eye level with an evil smile on his face. "I'm gonna enjoy fucking you, Inuzuka. I got these scars from your bitch of a mother and I've hated your clan ever since. I think I'll have you suck me off first," he says, and forces her on her knees while he unzips his pants, and Hana's eyes widen in fear. "If you bite me, you're dead," he growled and started to bring her head closer to his member while she struggles to move her head away from him while tears fell from her eyes. Majima forced Yugo legs opened and he was smiling like a madman. "I hope you're a screamer, wench," he said, and started to undo her pants. Meanwhile, a mist surrounds the camp, shocking everyone. "What the hell? Where did this mist come from?" Aiwa Chunin asked while everyone got up and looked around. A deep dark chuckle surrounded the area, and so did a bunch of growls and snarls. You fools dare to enter my forest and defile women for your sick pleasures. Unforgivable. I the Ryushi Juti will make you pay for your transgressions. He said while releasing killer intent, causing them to freeze up and sweat like crazy. Oh Kami. The Ryushi Juti. We're all dead. And Iwa Nin whimpered. That's when a bunch of red, green, yellow, and orange slitted eyes appeared throughout the mist. Now my Ryushis, hunters, kill them. Let their flesh satisfy your hunger. He roared, making them all go pale as the eyes roared at his command and attacked while their screams echoed through the campsite while the females hugged each other and covered their eyes while the sounds of screaming and flesh being ripped apart was heard. In the tent Guro and Majima were about to claim their prize when the sounds of roaring and screaming was heard. What the hell is that? Guro said as he turned his head to the entrance of the tent. Hana decided to use this distraction to her advantage. She bared her fang and used what little strength she had to force herself to her feet and sank her fangs into the surprised man's collarbone and getting the taste of blood in her mouth. Guro cried out in pain and ended up stumbling backwards out of the tent and they both fell outside. Guro, Majima asked. Yugo saw this distraction and without warning she pushed herself forward and head-butted the man hard in the face. The sound of cartilage breaking entered her ears and Majima screamed out in pain while clutching his face. Yugo sprung to her feet, charged at the man and shoulder tackled him out of the tent. The Kumo Nin went flying out of the tent still holding his nose and Yugo hit the ground hard and cried out in pain as 3 of her ribs snapped and her right shoulder dislocate. She got up still, ignoring the pain she was in right now. She was going to kill this bastard if it was the last thing she did. Majima got up slowly. Yugo then leapt into the air behind Majima and wrapped her legs around his head. The weight from her body brought them both down and she tightened her grip on his neck while he struggled to pry her legs off his neck. I'm going to snap your neck, you son of a bitch. She cried while his legs flopped around wildly like a fish. Hana was on top of Guro with her canines inserted deeply into his collarbone. Blood squirted out as she twisted and dug her teeth into his flesh. Her eyes were slitted like her mother's and her appearance was more feral. If she died, she'll die fighting even if she could only use her teeth to fight. Aw, get the fuck off me, you bitch. Guro cried out as they rolled around the ground but she still kept her grip firm. I said get off, you fucking bitch. He yelled and started to punch her on the top of her head continuously. Hana grunted but still kept her grip on him. After a couple of hits her head started to bleed more and her grip started to get weaker and her vision weaker. You damn bitch, get off now. He yelled and kicked her hard in the ribs. Her eyes widened from the pain and she let out an ear-splitting scream while flying into the air and hitting the ground hard. Yugo heard this and had a look of worry on her face. Majima took this chance and grabbed one of her ankles and sent electric currents through her body. Yugo let out a scream of agony as volts of electricity coursed through her body, frying her from the inside out. She releases her grip, rolls away, and curls up in pain as smoke rose from her body. Guro got up slowly and created an earth spear out of his right arm and walked towards Hana with a look of insanity in his eyes. Fuck being my bitch. You're better off dead, he says and brings it up to the air while Hana was coughing up blood and trying to breathe at the same time. Die. He roared and brought the spear down intending on running her through the head but a silver blade went through his heart making his body pause. Then it fell backwards, hitting the ground with a thud. A redhead with a mask covering half of her face appeared and walked towards the body of the stone bear and removed her naginata from the body and severed his head. She then sealed it and the body into a scroll. Well, that was fun, she said sarcastically, but then saw a female with markings on her face coughing up blood and having trouble breathing. Kasumi's eyes widened and she ran towards her and knelt down. She also removed the rope she was tied in. Majima now had her hoisted in the air by her throat and was cutting off her air supply. He then slammed her onto the ground and then slammed his foot down onto her chest, causing her to yell out in pain. He grinned like a madman as he added more pressure to her chest, making tears fall out of her eyes from the pain she was in. So you finally broke, huh? Good, He raised his foot off of her and pulled a sledgehammer from the seal in his arm and raised it high. Enjoy your new life in hell. He roared until he heard the sound of electricity and the sounds of an eagle crying. Washi Ise, eagle's cry. A voice cried out as he plunged his yellow lightning-covered hand through the man's back and out of his chest cavity. Blood fell from Majima's mouth as the hand tore out of the man's body and the sickening sound of flesh and bone being ripped was heard. Yugo looked up at her savior and saw him with a hood and mask covering half of his mouth and saw a few strands of blonde hair. He pulls out a strange black sword and severs the head of the missing nin and seals it in the body away. He then stares down at her with his yellow-orange slitted eyes. He then sheathes the sword and walks towards her. She tries to sit up but falls back down in pain. Naruto kneels down, cuts her free from the rope, and looks at her. Your right shoulder is dislocated. I'm gonna put it back in place, he said. Yugo nodded and watches as he places his right hand on her shoulder and his left hand on her arm. He then places a firm grip on her shoulder and pushes it in fast and hard. Ah, goddammit, that shit hurts, Yugo yelled. Naruto then placed one arm under her leg and the other one on her back and carefully lifted her up, holding her bridal style. What are you doing? She asked with a tint of pink on her cheeks due to the fact that she could feel the muscle from his arms. Helping you up. You have 3 cracked ribs and if you try to walk they'll puncture your lung. He answered, getting in. Oh, from her while walking towards Kasumi, whose hands were glowing white, trying to heal Hana, who was breathing slowly. Will she be alright? Yugo asked while Kasumi nods without looking at her. Hi. She will soon, but her lungs have been punctured by some broken ribs. She also has a small crack on the left side of her skull and a broken collarbone. We have to take her back to our place to treat her thoroughly. Kasumi answered. Naruto performed one-handed seals and finished them at the ram seal. The raptors had just finished with their meals and were now leaving the bloody camp. Kasumi stopped healing Hana and went to free the women. After that, she helped Hana up, who winced in pain. Kasumi, hold on and don't let go, he said. As a yellow aura surrounded them and they vanished. Meanwhile, an Anbu with a hawk mask saw this and shunshined away informed the Hokage. Underground Uzumaki compound recovery room. Yugo slowly opened her eyes and found herself in a bed with a cover on top of her. She had some patches and bandages on her face and her forehead was wrapped as well. She lifted the covers and found herself wearing a purple robe. She then sits up carefully and sees that her arms, legs, and torso were bandaged also. The room was pure white and there were different kinds of paintings in the room. Yugo then looks around to see Hana, who had bandages on her as well and was sleeping softly. Where are we? The last thing I remember is disappearing from that camp and appearing in front of a compound before passing out. She thought, but then heard footsteps. She looks at the door only to see a 14-year-old girl with red hair and bluish-green eyes walk in with a tray with 2 bowls on it. She also had canines jutting from her upper lip. She was also wearing a sleeveless tank top shirt that hugged her body and showed off her figure, which seemed to be more developed than other 14-year-old girls. She also wore crimson-red pants and black ninja sandals. She blinks at Yugo a few times then smiles. So you're finally awake. That's good, she said with a kind voice. The Anbu captain nodded but looked at her in shock. So you were the girl who works with the Ryushi Juti, huh? Kasumi nods and walks forward and sets the tray down. Yes, that was me, she answered, causing Yugo's eyes to bulge. But you're so young, she stammered while Kasumi sat in a chair. So, my brother is stronger and he's only 3 years older than me, she stated while Yugo's mouth hung open. The Ryushi Juti is your brother. And he's only 3 years older than you? Yugo asked. Kasumi nods but laughs at the expression on her face. Yeah, he is. I don't see how you find it so hard to believe. I mean, your village did have an Anbu captain who was 13 when he joined. Kasumi says, and Yugo couldn't help but agree, but then a serious expression appeared on her face. Why did you save us? She asked with a tone that sounded like a demand but froze when Kasumi gave her an icy glare. It was either save you or let those bastards rape you and those women they caught. The Ryushi Juti may be feared throughout the elemental nations, but he's not heartless. There are only a few things he hates and they are traitors, criminals, perverts and rapists. She said, straining the word. He'd kill anyone who would think of raping another person, especially females. After all, he did stop that slave trade that the Yakuza had in Ocean Country and also killed the main bosses who started it, so if I were you, I wouldn't jump to conclusions. No wonder he hates Konoha. She said while Yugo looks down in shame, but then her eyes widened. Wait, why does he hate Konoha? What did we ever do to him? She asked. You misunderstood me, Anbu-san. It's not Konoha he hates but the people who run the village. He stated that the ones who run the village are arrogant, short-minded, corrupt, and power-hungry fools who'd stab each other in the back because they trust no one. Kasumi replied, which caused Yugo to protest. That's not true. Not everyone in Konoha is like that. The Hokage is an honorable and respected person. She'd never stoop to being corrupt. Kasumi sighed. Again, you misunderstood me. I wasn't referring to the Hokage. I was referring to Konoha's council. I mean, it's their fault that the village is suffering right now due to the fact that they banished a ninja who not only saved the countries you were tied to but also because he failed to bring back a traitor who had a bloodline and went to an even bigger traitor. But what's worse about it is that he was banished for containing a biju, but not just any biju, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Is that true or not? She asked in an icy tone. Yugo flinched at her words and looked at the sheets of her bed. It is true. A lot of countries are disgusted with what we did, even the ones who had jinchurikis. The fire daimyo is also disappointed with us and punished us for our actions towards the boy. Only 20% of us respected the yondaimi's wish, but the rest, well, you know. I held no hatred for the boy and was even his bodyguard when he was little. He was the barrier that protected us from the Kyuubi's wrath, and those fools nearly destroyed it. She said while clenching her fists. I just hope that he's living a great life now that he doesn't have to look over his shoulder in fear anymore. She said with a sad smile on her face. Kasumi just looks at her and her expression softens. She looks over to see Hana groaning and opening her eyes. Why the hell does my head hurt so much? Feels like my skull was smashed in with a rock. She said and tilts her head and sees Yugo and a red-headed female looking at her. Yugo, who is that and where are we? She asked and sat up but groaned in pain. Kami, my ribs hurt. She whined, getting a giggle from Yugo, who also winced since her ribs hurt too. Kasumi chuckles but then gets up from the chair to get the 2 bowls of stew she had and walked over to Yugo's bed and handed her one. Thank you, she said while Kasumi walked over to Hana and gave her the other bowl. Thanks, Kasumi. Glad you're still with us, Inuzuka-san. She replied while Hana gave her a small smile. Just call me Hana, Kasumi. She replied, getting a nod from the girl. Do you have any aspirin? My head is killing me. Hana asked while the redhead pulls a bottle out of her pocket and hands it to her. Thank you, she says, popping the bottle off with her thumb and puts toe in her mouth, then swallows them. She grabs the spoon that was in the stew and scoops it up. She puts the spoon into her mouth and slurps the stew off and swallows it. Her eyes widen from the taste. Oh Kami, this is great, she said and eats more of it. Yugo does the same and her eyes widen as well. Oh wow, my taste buds are dancing. Did you make this? She asked while Kasumi shakes her head. No, my brother did, she answered, getting shocked looks from them. Your brother cooks? Hana asked, shocked that a male could actually cook. Yep. He can practically cook anything from scratch. He can also clean, sew, garden, and can also make his own clothes. He's much better than mom because he doesn't leave holes in my pants. She said with a small blush on her face while Hana and Yugo's eyes were the size of dinner plates. Hana returned to normal and asked, is he close to my age and is he single? She asked with stars in her eyes. Hana. Yugo yelled out but also couldn't help but wonder the same thing. You know, for two women who had just recovered, you sure do have loud voices," said a blond male who walked in the recovery room. He was 6'0" and wore a black sleeveless muscle shirt that hugged his body like a second skin, showing off his chest and abs as well as his arms that were muscular but not overly muscled. He also had tattoos that looked like black claw marks on his right arm. His mask was gone, showing off his masculine face. He also had canines jutting from his upper lip and had deep blue slitted eyes, and his hairdo was similar to the Yondaime's, but he had red highlights in his bangs. He also wore black Anbu cargo pants with two belts around his waist and Anbu-styled sandals that stopped near his knees. Yugo and Hana couldn't help but blush at the blond male's appearance. Wrapped around his neck was what looked like a blackish-brown scarf, but it was actually a ferret. Kasumi looked at her brother and sighs. A red blur zips past Naruto and leaps onto Kasumi's shoulders and licks her cheek, getting a giggle from the girl. It was Benihime. "Beni-chan, did you miss me?" Kasumi asked the two-tailed kid who yipped and nuzzled her cheek while she scratched her behind the ear. Naruto groans while the ferret unwraps herself from his neck and leaps off his shoulder and lands on Yugo's lap. Yugo stopped ogling Naruto and looked down at the ferret that stared at her with her silver-gray eyes and squeaked while tilting her head to the side. The female swordsman had to suppress a kawaii when it looked at her. The ferret then crawled up her arm and onto her shoulder, and then licked her face. "Ah, she likes you, Yugo," Hana said, but was inwardly fuming because she wanted the ferret to lick her face also. Yugo let out a giggle and rubbed her finger under the ferret's neck gently. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. "Wow, I've never seen Hanon act like that with a stranger before," he said while Hanon snuggled into Yugo's arm and purred when she stroked her back. Hana was pouting at this and wanted to hold the cute ferret. Kasumi saw this and giggled. Benihime leapt off of her shoulder and ran to Hana's bed and laid in her lap, shocking the girl. She then stroked the fox's ears and she purrs. "Why does this fox have two tails?" Hana asked, and Naruto answers. "She was born with them. Her mother had 3 tails though. She won't gain it until she turns 2. Benihime looks at him and glares. "Don't give me that look, fox. You know I'm right," he says while she yips at him and lays her head back down. "Cranky fox. Anyway, I'm afraid you two will have to stay here for a while. Your injuries were very serious when we rescued you, especially yours, Hana. 3 of your ribs snapped and punctured your lungs, which caused some serious internal bleeding. You also had a crack in your skull and a nasty gash was on the back of your head. Kasumi managed to stop the internal bleeding, but we had to pull the broken ribs that were in your lung carefully and then had to regenerate the cells in it. Your ribs will take 2 weeks to heal and your skull will take a couple of days, but you'll suffer from minor headaches for a while, so try not to think too much," he said in a joking manner, only to get smacked upside the head by another redhead that walked in wearing a black mesh shirt and red pants. "Don't be a smart ass, Sochi," she said while Naruto rubbed his head. Yugo's eyes widened when she saw the woman who she thought died. "KK Kushina-sensei?" she asked while Kushina looked at her then smiled. She walked over to Yugo, who had tears form in her eyes until the Uzumaki was a few inches away from her. "Hey Yu-chan. It's been a while," she said. Yugo pulled her master into a hug and sobbed into her shoulder. Kushina returned it and rubbed her back with her hand. Hana's eyes widened. She was looking at Kushina Uzumaki, the aka Arashi and strongest kunoichi, who was on par with Tsunade. Yugo and Kushina released each other. "Sensei, I thought you died when the Kyuubi attacked," she said while wiping her eyes with her sleeve while Kushina shook her head. "No, I didn't. I left because Sarutobi told me that my son died," she said, saying Sarutobi with venom in her voice. Hana blinked in confusion. "Wait, you had a son? Who was he and who was the father?" she asked, and that's when Naruto walked up. "Me. Can you guess who my father was?" Naruto asked while Yugo and Hana looked at him and their eyes became big. No way. You're the son of the Yondaime. Oh Kami. Konoha banished his son. What have we done?" Hana said with a look of dread on her face. Naruto just chuckles. Imagine the village's surprise when they find out that I'm not only the Yondaime's son but the Ryushi Juti. He said while their jaws dropped to the ground. You're the Ryushi Joutei. Yugo yelled while Nato nodded. Yep. So who is she sensei? Yugo asked pointing to the 14-year-old. My daughter Kasumi. I had her when I got remarried to another man. He's not here right now. He went to Kiri to deal with some pirates that were raiding the docks. Kushina answered. Now that we know who you really are, what's going to happen to us? Hana asked, hoping that Naruto won't kill them. Nothing. Once you're healed up, you're free to go. It doesn't matter to us. Konoha's no threat to me or my family, and we can deal with any ninja that comes from there. He answered and walked over to Kasumi and placed his hand on her head. Kasumi here is on par with Hatake Tem and can take on 2 Anbu units without breaking a sweat. He replied while she smiled. Sorry, but I won't tell you how strong I am. That was when a raptor appeared in front of Naruto, growling and chirping. Said Blonde's eyes widen and they narrow. How many? He asked while the raptor chirped. Damn. Ka-san, I'll be back. We appear to have some guests in our jungle. He said and walks out of the room while the raptor disappears in a puff of smoke. Naruto, who is it? Kushina asks. Naruto turns around with a dark look on his face. Konoha nin. He answers while his eyes went from deep blue to yellow-orange. Kushina's eyes widen and her eyes narrow. Take Kasumi with you and deal with them. Try not to kill them though. Break them in half if you must. She said while Naruto nodded. Let's go, Kasumi. We have trash to throw out. Naruto called out and his Emotu ran out of the room saying, hi, and runs past him to get her gear. Naruto then walks into the dark tunnel while his eyes glowed in the dark. Meanwhile, several Konoha nin were running through the dark dense jungle. They were Asuma, Guy, Anko, Kurenai, Kakashi, Neji, Kiba and Akamaru. Their mission was to search for Yugo and Hana, who were reported to have been abducted by the Ryushi Juti and his partner by an Anbu. Tsunade had no choice but to send them to try to retrieve them or listen to the council bitching about it. Kakashi, however, was still a Chunin despite the elders' protest, but the Senju wouldn't hear it, stating that he abused his position and needs to be humbled. His colleagues heard about the thrashing he got from Kurenai after what he said and didn't feel sorry for the man. They just ignored him and didn't invite him for drinks or any other things they did on their downtime. Anko also gave the Cyclops a thrashing he'd never forget. They continued to run until Asuma stopped, as did the others. They heard growling. What the hell was that? Anko asked. Don't know, but I've never heard something growl like that. Kiba sniffed the air and got stiff. Whoever growled like that is reptilian. The Inuzuka replied. Neji activated his Byakugan to try and find the source. That odd. My Byakugan isn't picking up any heat signatures. They must be capable of lowering their body temperatures. He said as he increased his vision but still got nothing. Great. So we do not know if they're a threat or not. Kakashi asked while Guy pulls out 2 black tonfas. Get ready for a fight, everyone. Whatever Kiba and Akamaru sensed are close by. He said in a serious tone. Asuma pulled out his trench knives. Kiba flexed his claws and Akamaru's fur stood up. Neji got into a Juken stance with his Byakugan activated. Anko pulled out 2 kunai, as did Kurenai and Kakashi. Suddenly, a bunch of red, yellow, orange, and green eyes appeared around them, growling from the tropical plant life. One leapt out of the plant life that hid them and landed a couple of feet away from them. The Junin had looks of shock, fear, and awe when they saw the reptilian creature stand before them hissing. It was 6 feet tall, 13 feet long and weighed around 200 pounds. Its skin tone is a blackish-brown color, had 2 light blue stripes starting from its neck to the end of its tail and was white on the creature. Also had a crest on the middle of its nose that was red, and it had feather quills on the back of its head that stopped to the end of its neck. Its red slitted eyes stared the Junin down. It also had a long thick tail that it could probably be used for combat, but that's not what got their attention. On its long arms were 3 pairs of long black curved claws that appeared to be razor sharp, and on its feet were 3 claws, but the third one was longer and stood straight up and looked like it could cut a person open with a mere twitch. The creature then snarled and opened its maw, revealing a pair of razor-sharp teeth that could tear through flesh as if it were paper. Every Junin had wide eyes when they looked at it. "What kind of animal is that?" Kurenai asked while the raptor started to walk left and right in a slow fashion while eyeing his new prey. Saliva dripped from his mouth and his hisses grew louder. "Who knows? But something tells me that we're on in its menu," Neji replied. Akamaru tensed up more and growled at the bushes. 14 more of them came out of hiding, hissing and snarling at their new prey while approaching them slowly, flexing their claws and snapping their teeth a few times. Some were dark brown with green slitted eyes, others were whitish-gray with blackish-brown spots and yellow slitted eyes, and the rest were orange with tiger-like stripes and orange slitted eyes. "Shit. This doesn't look good," Asuma said while increasing his grip on his trench knives. Anko grinned at them and licked her lips. "I wonder if I can keep one as a pet," the snake mistress replied, getting a glare from Kurenai. "This isn't a time to joke around, Anko," Kurenai said while Anko chuckled. "Who said I was kidding?" Anko answered back while the others got ready. "What are they waiting for?" Kiba asked Neji. "For their leader to order the attack. They're not just animals, Kiba. They're smart. They're a pack who works as a team like we do. I suggest we keep our distance from them. Their claws and teeth prove that they're proficient in close combat, which is bad for most of us." The Hyuga answered. Kiba snorted. "So what? They're a bunch of overgrown lizards. I doubt they could take on an Inuzuka," he said arrogantly. The leader heard this and his eyes flared and he snarled loudly at the two-legged mammal. "How dare that ninja mock us? I'm gonna enjoy ripping him apart," he ranted in his mind. He then lets out a roar and charges at the ninja who mocked him. "Oh shit, he's coming for me!" Kiba cried out as the predator moved at a speed that seemed impossible for a creature its size. Guy moved between the raptor and Kiba and swung the tonfa he had in his right arm at him. To everyone's surprise, it leapt over Guy, who was also shocked, landed on the ground, and still charged at the frightened Inuzuka with its maw opened wide and its claws ready to rip him apart. Before he could do that, Anko delivered a roundhouse kick to the leader's side and sent him tumbling on the ground. Anko glared at Kiba, who had the nerve to look sheepish. "Don't get cocky, you mutter. Next time I'll let him rip you apart," Anko said in a scary voice. The leader got back up on his feet and roared. The other roared back and charged at their new prey. Anko and the leader stared each other down. He growled at the scantily clad Kunoichi, who just smiled, which confused yet irritated the raptor. They circled each other, waiting for one to attack. The raptor just hissed and flexed his claws while Anko's grin became predatory. The leader then charged at Anko, who had her two kunai ready, and started snapping at her head. Anko dodged them, and after the fifth one, she kicked the hunter in its lower jaw, causing him to stagger back a little. He shook his head to get the stars out of his head and saw the snake mistress charge at him and swing one of her kunai at his throat. He moved sideways and snapped at her side, but she twisted her body and punched him on the side of his head. The raptor grunts a little from the punch but couldn't help but be impressed with this ninja's strength. Too bad he had to kill her. The ancient predator swung its large tail at the woman, who leaps over the attack and lands on the ground. The raptor then swipes at Anko's back with his claws and she barely dodges them. Her trench coat gets shredded from the bottom though. She looks down her ruined coat and glares at the raptor. "You damn lizard, this is my favorite coat. I'll take your hide as compensation," she yelled and charged at the raptor, who roared back and charged towards her. While the Konoha nin were taking on the pack, two dark figures with yellow-orange eyes were watching the fight. "It appears our friends have found the rotten leaves. Let's go, Kasumi," he said as he draws his katana from his back, as does she.